Hey everyone, welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Justine and I am a gardener in Zone 3B in Manitoba, Canada. And I am a science-based gardener and homesteader. It is the end of April, so even though I can't do too much gardening outside, I can't plant anything out at the moment, there is still a ton to do in the garden. So I thought I would show you what I'm up to this weekend. So the first thing I did this morning was actually bring some of my plants from my basement where I have my little grow area going. I brought some of those plants outside to harden off. So I'm hardening off my brassicas, my ranunculus, and my onions at the moment. I might plant out my onions today. We'll see how the day goes, but they will be put outside pretty shortly. But I wanted to get those three things hardened off because I'll probably plant those in the next few weeks. And it is so windy outside, so we are hanging out in my cattle panel greenhouse today, and we are going to start, I think, with planting some dahlia bulbs. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do today is plant up some dahlia bulbs. So I got these from Costco. They were 20 bucks, and you get 7 bulbs. And if they're in good condition, we actually might be able to get more than 7 out of here by multiplying them and dividing the bulbs themselves. So I'm going to cut this open and see what these look like. I don't know about you, but I'm always a sucker for the bulb section at Costco because I feel like you can't go wrong for 20 bucks for 7 bulbs. It's such a good deal. All right, so this is what they look like. So I got the purple and white variety. This is kind of the color scheme I'm going for in our front garden. So I'll put those there, and let's see what these look like. One thing that I don't like about these bags of bulbs is that it's really hard to see the condition of the bulbs that are in the bags. For dahlias, for example, you want to make sure that all the bulbs are nice and firm, nothing squishy. This one doesn't look too bad. Definitely not the best dahlia tuber I've ever had, but let's see how the rest of them look. Yeah, so I'll show you what you don't want. You can see here, so this one's actually going moldy at the bottom and it's very squishy. So you want really plump dahlia bulbs. This one is not fantastic, if I'm being quite honest. Oh, this one looks actually pretty good, and it's actually starting to sprout already, if you can see. There we go. So you can see that there's some new growth here. So that's a good sign. And this one does feel very firm, which is good. This one doesn't look too bad, and there are new shoots growing on here too, which is great. So I will pot this one up. So far, 1 out of 4 doesn't look awesome, which is not bad. This one looks good too. It almost seems like the dahlia companies are catching on to people dividing these at home because that's a very small tuber. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And last but not least, this one doesn't look like it has any new growth on it, but it is very firm. No squishy bits. So this one's probably okay too. Because these tubers are so small and there aren't a lot of shoots already on them, I might just leave them as is and not actually divide the tubers themselves. What I will do though is pot these up, and then I can multiply them by just taking cuttings from the dahlia plant itself. Dahlia are super easy to propagate once you have leafy growth on them. So I think that's what I'll do instead. I'm not going to risk ruining these bulbs for more plants. I'll just plant them off as is and then take some cuttings as they get bigger. All right, so to pot these up, I'm just going to fill some pots with soil. And then with dahlias, because they are so bulky, you just want to make sure that the old top of your dahlia is above the soil. And then it'll look something like that. So there are new shoots on this one. If I gently pull this back, I don't remember where they were planted. There you go. So you can see that there's a new shoot just right there. So it is buried, but it'll pop above the soil before I know it. So I'll get these all done and then I will water them in. Okay, now that these are all planted, I'm just going to give them all some water. This is a new bag of soil, so it's a little hydrophobic here. And it's not soaking in, so I'll just give this a second for it to absorb into the soil. And then the next thing I want to do, I have a box of peonies that I just ordered, and I've never actually started peony tubers myself. I have no idea what they're going to look like, so I'm going to open the box and see what I'm dealing with. I just grabbed some markers because I want to make sure that I am labeling these peonies well, because I want to remember which each variety is. Because if there was one that does really well in my garden or like looks really good, I want to remember which one it is so that I can order it again. And I want to make sure that I don't get my peonies and my dahlias mixed up. I know that once they start growing, I'll be able to tell the difference, but just in case, it's always good to label your plants. So I'm going to label these dahlias first. So this box feels very light, and I think I have 30 peonies in here. Okay, maybe I didn't order 30. I'm trying to remember how many I ordered. I know that I ordered 2 of some kinds and 1 of the other. But yeah, so they're coming individually packed like this. If you're interested in knowing what I have here. So I have Pillow Talk peony, and I can add photos here so you can see what these ones look like. My color scheme for my front garden is going to be pinks and purples. So these are all like a pinkish, either dusty pink to, I don't want to say a vibrant pink, but a little bit more pinky than just a dusty pink. So that one was Pillow Talk. This one is Katharina Fontagen. This one's the same variety. This one is Norma Voles. Same thing. This one's Sarah Bernhardt Unique. This one, same thing. This one's a dinner plate variety, so I think that one's going to be quite large. I have another Pillow Talk and then another dinner plate. So yeah, I think this makes sense. I ordered 10 peonies, and I think they were roughly, I think there's actually prices in some of these. I think they were roughly like $15 to $30 depending on which variety that I got. But this was way cheaper than buying them at my local garden centers, because some of those peonies can go for like $50 if they're already grown. So this definitely saved me a little bit of money, and I got a better variety of peonies. There was a lot of options on this website that I purchased these from. So considering these tubers are quite big, I think I might need to go grab a couple more pots that can accommodate the size of these plants. And I'm going to start them in pots, let them grow a little bit bigger, and I'll plant these outside once the threat of frost is over. Okay, now to get started on these peonies. So I know that there's some that are quite big, and I have 2 big pots, so I'm going to save the biggest ones for the biggest pots. Maybe that one. That one should be okay. So I'll do those 2 in the bigger pots. Okay, So I'll start by filling these up with soil, just like I did with the dahlias. This peony here might actually be too big for this. I'm gonna see if I can maybe take out some soil. There we go. And that's what it looks like when it's done. So just the very tops of the emerging stems are showing. Okay, so the dahlias and peonies are done. The next thing I think I want to do today is, in this greenhouse, when I had it at my previous home, I just had all my peppers in pots inside. They did really well in pots inside this greenhouse because it stays so warm. But because I only had a few peppers in pots, it kind of seemed empty, and I really want to utilize this space as much as I can. So I think this year I'm going to do some in-ground gardening in this greenhouse, and I need to prep some beds inside. My plan is to grow my cucumbers, my melons, some tomatoes, not all of them, and some peppers, not all of them. But I'll just have some of them growing in here just so I can see if they do better in here. For cucumbers in particular, I seem to have really bad luck growing them out in the garden. I don't know why, but they like heat, so I thought maybe growing them in the greenhouse might help with that. But I'm thinking I want to do 3 beds lengthwise within this garden. And then in the middle here, I'm gonna have the melons growing up a trellis, and maybe even the cukes. And I shouldn't say trellis, up a string to the top of the cattle panel greenhouse. I think that would look really pretty. I'm nervous that it's going to be really crowded in here, and maybe as things grow, they're gonna shade out others, but I feel like I just want to experiment with it and yeah, use this space as much as I can. So I'm gonna see what happens. But the first thing I need to do is prep some beds. I was originally thinking of taking off the sod, but now that I'm in here, I think I might just do cardboard and then soil on top. The cardboard won't break down very quickly because this greenhouse doesn't allow water in, so the cardboard is only gonna be as wet as I water it, if that makes sense. So it'll take a while for the cardboard to break down, which has its pros and cons. It'll keep the grass out or any other weeds. Right now it's just kind of mishmash of plants as our grass. But yeah, the cardboard, if it's dry, it'll keep the weeds at bay, but then it's going to be difficult to plant into because the cardboard will still be basically intact. So what I'll end up doing probably is creating a mound of soil that's a couple inches deep so that I can plant into something. And then anything that needs to be planted a little bit deeper, I might just cut a hole in the cardboard and let the plant, and then through the soil underneath it, and just let the plant kind of grow through the cardboard, through the soil, and through the weeds, but hopefully the cardboard will stop the weeds from coming through. So the plan is to get the things that I actually just started in here, so the dahlias, the peonies, I'm just gonna put them outside of the greenhouse for right now, and then I'm gonna get some cardboard and start laying it down and putting some soil on top of it. I don't know if I have enough soil today to do it, but I will get as far as I can. So when you're using cardboard to smother your grass for your garden, you wanna make sure that it doesn't have a ton of text on it. And then of course you want to get rid of any tape or anything that's on it. My goal is to make these beds around 2 feet wide. And I might not be able to get all the way to the corners just because the way my boxes are, but I'm going to do my best. So this is roughly what I'm thinking space-wise. I might make that one a little bit wider because those pieces of cardboard were a little bit smaller, but I think this is the general shape. I'm debating whether I want to have a garden bed across the back of the garden there, but this greenhouse isn't very big. So if I walk in, I'm gonna have a bed here with plants, assuming they're gonna be growing pretty big. Do I need the back space? I feel like I should optimize the amount of space I have in here. I think I might do it. I have a little bit of extra cardboard here that I'll cut up. So those beds at the back will be a little bit narrower, just so it's easier to get into. But I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so the cardboard is laid down. So there's still a good amount of space in the front of the greenhouse here, so I can still start a bunch of seeds and kind of have them either on little shelves in this front area or even on the ground. So I think this is kind of the best of both worlds. I'll have some in-ground gardening and then some space for seed starting, which is exactly what I want my greenhouse to be used for. So I'm going to use this same soil that I use for the dahlias and peonies, and I'm just going to put it on top. This actually looks really good. I'm very excited about how this turned out. I'm going to use some of this extra water here just to water it in slightly. This isn't really going to help break down the cardboard yet. It's more so just to keep the soil from getting too hydrophobic and making it impossible to water in the future. So one other thing I want to do with this greenhouse, because it's far away from my house and there's no water source for me to use to water the plants inside of here, I'm trying to think of a way that I can add like an eaves trough to this side, like the base of the greenhouse, so that when water flows down the side when it rains on the outside, there's an eaves trough to collect all the water. And then I'm thinking that I could maybe cut a hole through the base of this greenhouse and then have some PVC piping and then have irrigation on the inside. So basically when it rains outside, it would rain inside the greenhouse too. Not sure how well this is going to work. So if you're someone handy, if that makes sense to you, or if it doesn't make sense to you, or if you have a better idea, I would love to hear it. So please let me know. So the next thing I'm gonna do today is plant out my onions. I planted them out, I just checked, April 28th last year. And it is the 26th today. So just 2 days early, but the weather looks good. So I'm going to plant these out. I have a few different varieties here. I have one red onion called Rosa di Verno Rubino. I have a Calibra onion, Calibra, Patterson, and those three are all storage onions, so they stored really well. I still have a bunch in my basement as of right now, which is pretty cool. Then I have a few leeks, and then my shallots, there's not as many as I would have hoped, but there's a few here, so I'll plant all of these out today. So last year I had one of the best onion years that I've ever had, and I feel like I can attribute it to the planting method that I used last year. So what I did was I created a little valley, and in that valley I put a bunch of bone meal. And then on either side of the valleys, that's where I planted my onions. And I saw this method from Kevin at Epic Gardener, or Epic Gardening, I should say, and it worked really well in my garden. So I'm gonna do it again this year. To do this method, all I'm gonna do is create a valley. And then I have a bag of organic bone meal here. I'm just gonna grab some gloves. And I'm just gonna take like a handful and sprinkle it within this valley. And remember where it is, of course. And then I'll plant my onions on either side. So basically it's gonna go onion, bone meal, onion, bone meal, onion, bone meal until the bed's full. So this year is the first year I didn't trim my onions, and they actually look really, really good. I did a little test though, so I can compare onions that I did cut versus ones that I didn't, just so I could see. Because last year when I planted them into the garden, they were like super spindly like this, and now they're like proper little green onions. So I'm kind of maybe thinking I'm in the camp of not trimming onions back, but I want to do the comparison to really see if there's a difference. Because in general, I will say, it is so windy today. In general, I will say that my onions look the best that they've ever looked in general. So I don't know if that's just something I did inside with all of my onions, or if it's just because I cut them or didn't trim them, I should say. So we'll see. I'm just doing my leeks now, and something I learned last year is that these really need to be planted deep if you want that really tender white part of your leeks. So I'm planting these probably about 4 inches deep, I would say, maybe 3 to 4. Anything that's covered in soil will essentially be white when you harvest it. And these I'm planting a little bit closer together since leeks don't have to bulb out as much. All right, that is it for me. I just finished planting all of the onions. They look great. I'm really excited to see how they do this year. And I just finished cleaning up the cattle panel greenhouse. I got rid of all the garbage and the extra boxes in there. So I am going to go in and clean off because I am very hot and very sweaty. But I had a great day today out in the garden, so that's all that matters. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful week in the garden.